Have you ever noticed that the more you open up to family, the more complicated things seem to get? You start with the best intentions, to be honest, to stay close, to feel connected. But somehow, the more you share, the less peace you seem to have. Many of us come to this realization after 65, and it's not because our families don't love us. They do. It's because love, by nature, is complex. Expectations, opinions, emotions, they all come wrapped up in that love. And when you lay everything out on the table, it can trigger reactions you never anticipated. I used to believe that complete honesty was the best way to stay close to my family. I really did. I thought, if I tell them everything, it'll show them I trust them. But with time, I learned something quietly powerful. Not every truth needs to be spoken. Not because it's shameful, but because peace, at this stage of life, is something worth protecting. And after everything you've been through, you've earned that right. That's why I want to have a conversation with you. Not a lecture, just a thoughtful talk. About 5 things I've learned are better kept to yourself after 65. Not out of secrecy, but out of wisdom. If you've ever felt drained after opening up too much, or walked away from a conversation wishing you'd kept a little more to yourself, this message is for you. And if you're new here, welcome. You've found a kind and thoughtful space for seniors who want to navigate these next years with dignity, calm, and strength. So let's begin. The first secret is a big one: your exact financial situation. Now, I know what you're thinking. We've been taught that transparency prevents trouble, that if we let our families know what we've saved, how we've structured things, and what we plan to do with our money, we're avoiding confusion down the line. I believed that too. But here's the truth no one really talks about. The moment you pull back the curtain on your finances, the dynamic changes. Sometimes slowly, sometimes overnight. Let me share Martin's story. He's 81 now, a retired engineer who spent his life budgeting carefully and investing modestly. A kind, soft-spoken man with a sharp mind and a generous heart. A few years ago, thinking it would bring peace of mind, Martin sat down with his 2 adult sons and showed them everything: bank accounts, pension, house deed, even his estate distribution plan. He printed spreadsheets, hoping they'd see how responsibly he'd managed everything. He expected relief, maybe even gratitude. What he got instead were questions, lots of them. "Dad, why are you still in such a big house? Shouldn't you move into assisted living before something happens? What's your plan for long-term care?" One son even offered to move in, just in case something comes up. None of it was said with malice. It came from love, from concern. But over time, Martin began to feel boxed in, like every decision now needed someone else's approval. And it didn't end there. Once the numbers were out, even small purchases became open for critique. A vacation? Should you really be flying at your age? A new recliner? That seems expensive. Even a new pair of shoes drew commentary. And what hurt most, Martin told me this himself, wasn't that his sons didn't care. It was that they cared so much, so loudly, that he felt like he'd lost the freedom to live his own life. That's the reality. Once you open that door, it's hard to close it. Even the kindest family members can overstep without realizing it. And in less fortunate scenarios, people who once kept their distance suddenly become very interested. Not in you, but in your money. That distant cousin who never called, suddenly they want to visit. The grandchild who always forgot your birthday, now they're asking about your will. I'm not saying you shouldn't plan ahead. You absolutely should. It's wise to have a will, a durable power of attorney, and someone you trust to carry out your wishes if the time comes. But sharing the full picture too soon, before it's truly necessary, can create a kind of pressure you didn't ask for. Suddenly, your choices are second-guessed, your independence is questioned, your decisions are no longer just yours, they're being made with you, or worse, for you. Privacy is not secrecy, it's protection. You don't owe anyone your bank statements. You don't need to explain why you bought a new TV or donated to a cause you care about. Your money is yours. It's the result of decades of hard work, of sacrifices no one else may even know about. And the person most qualified to decide how it should be spent or saved is you. Protect your peace. Share only what needs to be shared when the time is right, and with people who genuinely respect your boundaries. Because once your finances become a topic of family discussion, you might find yourself defending decisions that no one else should be judging in the first place. Now, let's talk about something that feels so natural to share: our health. After all, our bodies aren't what they used to be. The knees creak a little more than before. Sleep isn't always restful. And some days, we just don't feel like ourselves. It's normal. And when you love your family, it's only human to want to share those experiences with them. We think, they care about me, they'll want to know. And often they do. But here's the part we rarely consider: how that information gets processed on the other side. See, when we casually mention, "My back's been acting up again," or "I felt dizzy the other morning," it may feel like just small talk to us. But to your children or grandchildren, those words carry weight. They love you, and because they love you, they may overreact, not intentionally, but emotionally. What you see as a passing moment of discomfort, they hear as a red flag. And from that moment on, they may begin seeing you differently. Let me tell you about Claire. She's 76, widowed for a few years now, and still fiercely independent. She loves gardening, volunteers at the local library, and walks her little terrier around the neighborhood every morning. One day, after a full weekend of yard work, she mentioned to her daughter over coffee that her shoulders were sore. Just that, no complaints, just a little soreness. Her daughter's response: she panicked. She booked her a physical therapy appointment, started calling twice a day to check in, and even suggested hiring someone to help around the house. Claire was taken aback. She appreciated the love, sure, but she also felt handled, like she'd suddenly become fragile. Over time, her daughter started making comments like, "Are you sure you should be lifting that?" Or, "Maybe you shouldn't drive at night anymore." And Claire, who had always taken pride in her independence, began to feel like a child in her own life, all because of one offhand comment about sore shoulders. This is the subtle danger of oversharing health details, especially the small, non-urgent ones. You're not doing anything wrong by mentioning them, but you may be unintentionally shifting how your family sees you, from strong and capable to someone they need to protect or manage. That shift, once it starts, is hard to reverse. Now, don't get me wrong. If something serious is going on, if there's a diagnosis, a condition that affects your daily life, something that requires real support, of course, you should share it. Your family should know. You deserve their help when it truly matters. But every little twinge, every stiff joint, every sleepless night, you don't need to broadcast it. Think of it this way. Sharing everything can sometimes create a narrative that doesn't reflect who you are. You might feel mostly fine, but your loved ones might begin to see you as declining faster than you are. That can lead to them making decisions for you, limiting your freedom or just hovering a little too much. And that, over time, can be exhausting. Not just for you, but for your relationships. You've lived in your body long enough to know what's serious and what isn't. You know when something's just part of aging and when it's a real concern. Trust that knowledge, and trust that you don't need to validate every cough or cramp with someone else's opinion. There's another angle to this too, your emotional space. Constantly talking about small health issues can start to make you feel like your life is shrinking, that everything is about what's wrong, what hurts, what's wearing down, and that's not the story you want to tell. You are more than your aches and pains. You are a full person with wisdom, joy, routines, hobbies, and quiet victories every day. Don't let the little discomforts dominate your narrative. I'm not saying you should suffer in silence or bottle things up. Not at all. Talk to your doctor, keep track of symptoms, take care of yourself with intention and awareness. But when it comes to family, be thoughtful. Choose when and how you share, and ask yourself, am I sharing to feel closer, or am I unintentionally giving away my independence? Because here's the truth. Peace in your later years doesn't come from having everyone worry about you. It comes from knowing yourself well enough to decide what matters and when to speak. That's not denial. That's dignity. Now let's talk about something many of us have learned the hard way: getting involved in family conflicts. At this age, we've seen our fair share of arguments. We've watched children grow apart, siblings fight over money, in-laws misunderstand each other, and old grudges resurface over things we thought were long buried. And as the older generation, we often feel this tug to step in, to help, to offer advice, to smooth things over. But here's a lesson that comes only with experience. The more you say, the more risk you take, especially in family matters. Silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. I'll give you a real example. Miriam, an old friend of mine from a walking group, told me about a moment she wishes she could take back. She's 80 now, sharp as ever, and the kind of woman whose opinion people naturally seek out. One afternoon, during a visit with her daughter, she mentioned in the gentlest way that maybe her grandson, who was 5 at the time, could start helping tidy up his toys. That was it. No lecture, no raised voice, just a soft suggestion. But her daughter didn't take it that way. She grew quiet, a little cold. The calls came less often. Invitations stopped. Miriam, who had only meant to help, was left wondering how one sentence could cause such distance. And unfortunately, that rift never fully healed. That's the danger of sharing your real opinions in the middle of family conflict, or even in the most innocent-seeming situations. Because no matter how gently you say something, people hear through the filter of their own emotions. Your words might feel like support to you, but to them, it might feel like judgment, criticism, or taking sides. You try to help 2 adult children settle a disagreement, and suddenly, both feel you're playing favorites. You express concern about your daughter-in-law's parenting, and your son pulls away. You mention that one family member seems to always borrow money, but never repay. And just like that, you become the one who stirs the pot. Even if your words are spoken with love, people remember them, sometimes more than they remember the original issue itself. You could be trying to calm things down, but end up being the one they resent most when the dust settles. Why? Because once you speak up, they associate you with the conflict, not the resolution. And over time, that can leave you isolated. So what should you do instead? Here's the truth I've come to live by. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to share your opinion just because you have one. You can love your family deeply without inserting yourself into every disagreement. You can be present without being pulled in. Sometimes, the most powerful words you can say are, "I trust you to work it out. I don't want to take sides, but I'm here if you need me." And then, let go. Let them grow. Let them stumble. Let them learn the way you did, by figuring it out themselves. Because, you see, involvement might feel helpful in the moment, but in the long run, it rarely brings peace. What brings peace is protecting your own emotional well-being, being the calm eye of the storm, being the quiet, steady presence that doesn't react to every wave. And that doesn't mean you're uncaring. It means you've grown enough to know that not all battles need your participation. Your role now, more than ever, is to keep your heart steady. Not just for them, but for you. You've seen what happens when people speak without thinking, when well-meaning advice turns into long-term wounds, and you've earned the right to step back, to watch, to hope, to pray, maybe, but not to be dragged into every fire. Because let's be honest, in this stage of life, peace is too precious. You've earned your wisdom. You've lived through enough family holidays, heated discussions, and misunderstood conversations to know. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is stay silent, let them figure it out, and love them from a gentle distance. Now let's talk about something much quieter than drama, but often heavier than any argument: our regrets. At this stage in life, we've all got them. Even the most content and accomplished people carry a few what-ifs and I wish I hads. It's part of the human experience. You think about the opportunities you didn't take, the places you didn't go, the moments that slipped through your fingers, and sometimes those memories start to surface in conversations with our children, with our grandchildren, or even just in passing remarks over coffee. But here's something I've come to believe. Not every regret needs to be spoken aloud, especially not in front of the people you love. Let me tell you about Norma. She's 79, a retired school teacher who raised 4 children while supporting her husband through years of illness. One afternoon, during a quiet walk with her youngest daughter, she sighed and said, "Sometimes I wish I hadn't let go of my dream to travel when I was young." It wasn't meant to hurt. It was just a thought, a flicker of reflection. But her daughter took it hard. Later, she admitted it made her feel like her mother's sacrifices hadn't been worth it. That somehow, she and her siblings had held her back. That maybe their life, the family they had, wasn't enough. That's the tricky thing about regrets. What feels like honest reflection to us can feel like rejection to others. We're trying to share something deeply personal, maybe even as a life lesson, but our loved ones often hear it through a different lens. When you say, "I wish I had worked longer," they may hear, "You weren't enough." When you say, "I should have moved to a different town," they may feel you were never truly happy where they were raised. You're trying to express your humanity, but it's easy for others to take it personally, even if you never intended that. There's another side to this too. The more we speak about our regrets, the more people begin to see us as someone stuck in the past, rather than someone still living in the present. It might make them pull back, thinking you're always looking backward instead of enjoying today. They might treat you more delicately, as if your best days are behind you, even when you don't feel that way at all. Now, don't misunderstand me. Your feelings are valid. Your regrets are real. You've lived a full life, and you've earned the right to reflect on it honestly. But some of those reflections are better kept close to the heart, not because they're shameful, but because they're sacred, because sharing them too freely can accidentally hurt the very people you love the most. So instead of saying, "I wish I had done things differently," consider saying, "I've learned a lot from the life I've lived." That one shift in language carries wisdom without sorrow. It shows growth without guilt. It honors your story without placing a burden on someone else's shoulders. This isn't about pretending the past was perfect. It's about choosing to frame your journey in a way that brings peace, both to you and to those who care about you. You don't have to hide your emotions. You don't have to fake cheerfulness. But you do have the right to protect the emotional space between you and your family. And remember, peace in your later years doesn't come from rewriting the past. It comes from making peace with it, quietly, privately, with grace. Now let's talk about the fifth and final secret, one that many people believe they should share for the sake of fairness or clarity. Your plans for your assets. We've all heard the advice, haven't we? Don't leave your family guessing. Make sure everyone knows what to expect. And there's some truth in that, up to a point. Having a legal plan in place, making a clear will, and choosing someone you trust to manage your affairs is important. Absolutely. Here's a piece of wisdom that often goes unspoken. The details of what you plan to leave behind, who gets what, how your estate is divided. These things can cause more harm than good when shared too early or too openly. Take Edna, for example. She's 83, a retired nurse who spent a lifetime saving, budgeting, and investing carefully. She's kind, generous, and fiercely devoted to her 3 adult children. Wanting to avoid future confusion, Edna made the choice to explain her plans: who would get what, how the house would be sold, which heirlooms were going to whom. At first, it felt like the responsible thing to do. But within weeks, things began to change. Her middle son, always laid back, started calling more, suggesting they sell the house while the market was hot. Her daughter, who had moved out of state, questioned why her share was smaller, given the sacrifices she made by leaving home. Her youngest, he grew distant, clearly uncomfortable, but hurt nonetheless. What began as a well-meaning gesture turned into something else entirely. A quiet storm of subtle rivalry, strained conversations, and unspoken tension. Edna later said to me, "It felt like they were seeing the inheritance, not me." That's the danger of sharing too many financial details. Even with the best intentions, it can lead to expectation, entitlement, jealousy, or silence. What seems like a path to peace can instead open doors to comparison, confusion, and resentment. There's another layer too. Once people know your plans, they may begin to question your choices. Why stay in that house if it's going to be sold? Why go on that cruise now? Shouldn't you leave a little more for the grandkids? Pressure builds, not always with words, but in glances, tones, hesitations. And that pressure chips away at something precious: your freedom to enjoy the life you've earned. Let's be clear. Yes, you absolutely need a sound legal plan. You need a will, a power of attorney, and someone you trust to carry out your wishes. That's smart. That's necessary. But you don't need to turn your retirement into a family board meeting. You don't owe your children a line-by-line preview of your will. You don't need to justify your decisions. What you choose to give, or not give, is entirely yours. Because real peace in this stage of life isn't about how much you pass down. It's about how fully you live now. Your legacy is not just financial. It's the life you've lived, the values you've modeled, and the love you've given. Steadily, quietly, and generously. That's what they'll remember, if you let them. And if someone only seems to care when the topic turns to money, it's worth asking, do they truly value you or what you have? Protecting your plans isn't selfish. It's wise. It's respectful. It gives you the space to enjoy this season of life without feeling judged or second-guessed. So let me leave you with this. You've spent a lifetime giving, your time, your love, your wisdom, your energy. But now, it's your time to protect something else, your peace. Peace isn't a luxury at this age. It's essential. A peaceful home, a steady heart, the right to move through your day freely, without scrutiny or explanation. Sometimes, preserving that peace doesn't mean putting up walls. It means holding certain things back. Not because you're hiding something, not because you don't trust your family, but because you understand the value of quiet, of boundaries, of keeping sacred things to yourself. Ask yourself, what truths are worth sharing, and what truths are better kept close, not because they're secrets, but because they're sacred. If this message resonated with you, share it with us in the comments. What's one thing you've decided to keep just for yourself from now on? We read every response, and your words may offer clarity to someone else walking this same path. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. Join our growing community of thoughtful, wise seniors who understand that peace isn't stumbled upon. It's protected, one choice at a time. Thank you for spending this time with me. Until next time, take care of your heart, take care of your peace, and never forget, you've earned it.